So the point of this video is to basically illustrate that these completely sinless comic book pros that are constantly denigrating the fans and constantly casting out sins onto others aren't exactly sinless. And I want to show you exactly what that means. So there's a lot to go over, so I want to be able to be brief and just get right into it. Now, full disclosure, I'm not personally Comicsgate, but I am sick of the industry and its disgusting behavior. And I'm a comics book fan, so I have a lot to lose when people like this get to go unchallenged and continue to be malignant tumors in the industry. And there's just nothing I can defend there, or else I would. Two, I refer to pros in this video or multiple times as piranha plastics. Now that's A, because like piranha, they can be vicious, but piranha are only actually vicious to, I believe, wounded animals and other piranha, aka the weak, which is exactly who the pros successfully go after. And B, because in Mean Girls, the bully group is labeled the plastics. Now, since they so badly want comics to be a high school lunchroom with the social classing depth of an evaporated raindrop, hey, I'm all too happy to accommodate. You want to be Regina George, I'll treat you that way. Piranha Plastics. So, first up, Mark Waid, the Black Wreath incident. Mark Waid sent a black wreath to his former boss as a nasty way to basically mock his wife's passing. Now, everyone should know by now about Mark Waid's tortious interference into Richard C. Meyer's original Jawbreakers project. And essentially, he bullied Antarctic Press into backing out of their deal, which prevented Meyer from releasing his book as he originally planned. Now, did you know to what extent it went, though? Just Some Guy has an excellent video breaking down these text messages that have been released from Mark Waid to one of the brothers that own Antarctic Press. And he was completely unhinged and he texted non-stop like an abusive partner. I'll be linking that. And bottom line, that behavior is just, it's illegal. Threatening behavior at a con. Mark Waid went on another unhinged rant that was essentially about demanding someone find Meyer and bring him to him. On what planet is it okay to try and send people after a stranger to have them brought to you like you're some Middle Earth king in an ancient society? How would this go over if a so-called comics gator did this to them? Understandably, it would not go over well. Calling a black man a borderline white supremacist, which shows you he knew he was wrong, because why not go all out and call him one? There's no such thing as borderline, like it's like a little bit pregnant. Either you are or you aren't. He knew, he just knew it made no sense to call a black man that and tried to cover his ass. Mags Visaggio. The baseball bat incident. Good old, calm, rational, sane Mags threatening to hit people with a baseball bat. How about during the Me Too purge when, while people were actually getting accused of legitimately abusive things, Mags needed the moment to be about Mags and tries to throw Sean Gordon Murphy under the bus for being nice. This is who Mags is. When things are not about me, they need to be about me. Even when it's very important and it doesn't have to be about me. Michelle Perez. How about Michelle Perez wishing death on Meyer by IED, knowing he's a veteran and that could have been a reality? And this is the peaceful side of the conversation, remember? Michelle has also had to be banned from Twitter at least twice now because of Michelle's antics. How about when Michelle stalked, harassed, and doxed a person Michelle didn't like by the name of Miranda Yardley? Gail Simone. Now, Gail Simone claimed to not know who Eric Esquivel was, till at the time 3 days prior when she spoke out against him. Now, Eric Esquivel was the writer of a comic by the name of Border Town, and that's a whole thing in and of itself. But he wound up getting pretty credibly accused of some serious abuse. And, the industry started denouncing him, and Gail Simone comes out, and it looks to be lies about knowing him. Because the thing is, he was featured in a project she was also featured in, and the industry isn't that big. Even the article that announced their project notes that they're two industry juggernauts, so how would you not know each other? What reason could there be to lie versus just simply denounce him? Aubrey Sitterson. Now, Aubrey Sitterson belittled those who mourn or show sympathy for others on 9/11, despite working on one of the most patriotic series ever, G.I. Joe, by saying you can only mourn if you were there. Of course, we can't forget his lovely words to customers who he absolutely blames for the cancellation of his books. It's not Aubrey's writing at all. It's not Aubrey's massacre of a fan favorite series at all. No, it's you, the audience. It's you, the customers. That is very professional behavior. Tess Fowler. Someone is a lovely professional who doesn't do the work she agreed to and was more than paid for. TLDR, she was paid $1,000 to do work for Doc Wild. She made a bunch of excuses, barely produced anything but rough sketches, and then claimed the commissioner was voiding their terms and refused to hold up her end. Lied about the terms and cut contact with them. You can read about that below. It's a really, really long write-up. Kwanzaa O. Telling a person to STFU, thanks YouTube, over and over, and then makes a banner about it showing how dedicated he was. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Now, this would be labeled harassment if it came from someone they didn't like. Calling a black woman a sycophantic house Negro, in quotes. Making it personal and also nasty in response to her general insult. There's a myriad of things he could have clapped back with, but nope, let's be racist. Tim Doyle. Oh. Led a harassment campaign on Ethan to defame him, and yes, harassment in the literal sense, not the one two whiny prototype Karens made up waiting in line at Starbucks. That means you disagree with me, aka criticism. He dug into Zach's records like a stalker to try and defame him, only to lawyer up when he got scared about Zach's warning him legally and sent a nice, nasty letter. Being a genuinely disgusting POS and implying creep sexual things about his neighbor's dogs. Oh, and he has a thing with dogs because he released a statement recently where he disrespected Jae Lee and his wife's loss of their own dog, and you just need to read your screen to believe it. Speaking of, Tom King. Okay, first, he led some weirdo crusade against Dean Cain, only to prove Dean Cain right. Dean said he would not be able to say truth, justice, and the American way as Superman today. Super Alphabet Agency boy hopped in and tried to paint him as a liar. No, what he showed was a character that was not Superman saying it. Though he swore he had a victory when he shouted, "I wrote that in a comic." Yeah, not Superman saying it, which was the point. Then he tried to save face by acting like he disrespected Dean because he took a stance against face mask. And this was also a lie, something Tom King apparently really likes to do. Because what happened was Dean cracked a joke about face mask while on a flight. He took no stand against them. Super Alphabet Agency boy also turned his honed Super Alphabet Agency skills on Jae Lee. He parroted the lie about Comicsgate, and then he sent the Piranha Plastics on a crusade against Jae Lee, because he'd done a cover for Ethan Van Sciver after being paid like any other artist, mind you. Now, after he facilitated dragging Jae Lee's name through the mud, then he decides he's going to call him up and talk about it. Of course, Jae Lee does not support hate, and he lets that be known. However, Jay had to release a statement, which I'll be showing you on screen about now. Tom King essentially rained down unrighteous anger and accusations on a grieving man because he simply couldn't contact him first, the way he did after the fact. And Jay lets it be known that this is not okay and that it's not all good, referencing what Tom King had said in his follow-up tweet. And I'm glad, especially since Tom didn't even delete his statement after they had a conversation, and at the time of recording this video, it still hasn't been deleted. This points to Tom King blatantly lying when recounting his conversation with Jae Lee. Also, pay attention to Jay's wording and see if that doesn't sound like what they project onto others. They absolutely behave like the hate group they keep accusing others of being in. Now that's 2 times now that Super Alphabet Agency boy has carried the tank of piranha plastics to someone's door that did nothing wrong. CIA trains them well, I guess. Speaking of, if we use their logic, why do they support Tom King? The CIA is guilty of many human rights atrocities. Does that mean Tom King is too by association? Do you see how their rules look when applied fairly? Richard Pace didn't fulfill his campaign or refund, so, theft. Kind of what that is. And continued the hate train on Jae Lee, knowing Jay already exposed he'd been harassed by the original hate train commissioned by Super Alphabet Agency boy. Jae Nitz. What about Jae Nitz and his numerous accusations of sexual assault? And to be fair, Jae Nitz is not on that limb alone, as we now know, but still. What about that strange Facebook group they had where they thought up violent fantasies about Meyer? There was a group of pros threatening to assault him at a con by triggering his non-existent PTSD, which they assumed he had. They wanted to be covered legally if they went through it, which is the very definition of premeditation. Let's talk about how the constant dogpiling and misrepresentation of Ethan Van Sciver's character as a bigot and the misrepresentation of Comicsgate as a hate group came to a head with Larry Hama. Now, Larry Hama repeated this lie to the public, and Ethan gently corrected him and let him know how much his lies hurt the people he was misrepresenting. This led to a severely mentally unstable comic shop owner named Mike Wellman to threaten Ethan and his family viciously. He was clearly in an episode and chose to focus on a man that comic pros had demonized nonstop. He even references the Larry Hama conversation, which shows you what triggered him. What about Sean Gordon Murphy, who wanted to release his crowdfunding campaign for what we now know as the plot holes during the beginnings of the COVID lockdown? The Piranha Plastics decided it's not a good look and tried to shame and belittle him for it. Now, keep in mind, this was also when they were crying and complaining about pencils down. Now, why would you care that your pencils are down if you think it's unethical to take money from people at that time? The point of this section of the video is to show you how spiteful, petty, and downright malignant these pros are. Pros. These are their characters. This is who they are. Never rise above them, never step out of line. And we cannot forget the Whisper Network. And that, again, is a video on its own, so I'll try to quickly sum it up, and then I'll link you to deeper reading material. And from what I understand, there is more information and evidence on this to come, so keep an eye out on Bleedingfool. The Whisper Network is a group of female piranha plastics that want to destroy the careers of male pros. And there's tons of proof of this in the Bleedingfool article about it, which I'll be linking. And I mean, we can kind of look at the actions that have been taken by industry pros in recent years, and it adds up. What about when Ethan did a signing at a shop and it got vandalized as well as violent threats? Did you see them denouncing this? Did you see them apologizing to Ethan for this or showing any kind of concern? Hmm. So let's play a game called Using the Piranha Plastics Logic. If Comicsgate is a hate group that has to be held accountable for any behavior you ascribe to it, even if that doesn't match up with reality, or if a lot of the examples you've given, like Mike S. Miller, have been denounced.
Social justice warriors need to say that we're against diversity, that we're against inclusion. Boy, you guys wet your beds every time there's a black person in comics, don't you? No, no, we don't. In fact, that's a great thing. It's a cool thing if you want to do that. If of course, comics should be more reflective of the world as it is. We don't like it when that's the only point, when that's the primary point of your comics. We don't like that. And we can tell when social justice warriors do that, when social justice warriors are doing diversity for diversity's sake, because their diverse characters have zero flaws. Zero flaws. That is the entire point of the story. Their diverse characters have zero flaws. They just ace everything, one punch, and the villain's down. The villains are stupid clowns. Everyone congratulates this social justice diverse character. These make for very poor comics. It's not because the character is black, gay, transgendered. It's because the creators are afraid of those people. That's why. It's because the creators are trying to launch a campaign to promote diversity above storytelling.
That must mean that all comic book pros, aka Piranha Plastics, are to be held accountable for the predators they allowed refuge in their ranks that have been exposed. I mean, you had to take a freaking pledge to promise not to rape people, bruh. Little kids understand that. And this industry was so riddled with sex pests, they had to take a pledge not to do it. Am I to judge you all by that metric? I mean, the industry is really tiny, and just like Ricky Gervais said about Hollywood, you knew. You knew, and you waited until it was no longer convenient or safe to be silent about it. So that must mean that all of the noxious behavior I've laid out for you in this video is on all of their hands, right?